Welcome back, guys, to another episode of the True Strength Life podcast. This is episode 151. This episode is about Charliekirk's faith. So this is a part of the little series I started right at the end of 2025. We're now right at the beginning of 2026, and my original plan was to have this series done by hopefully the end of 2025, but that didn't work out. Life just got super busy, and that's fine. But I still wanted to finish the four guys I wanted to cover. These are several guys who were notable Christians who passed away in 2025. So I have an episode on Hulk Hogan. I have an episode on John MacArthur. This episode is for Charliekirk, and I will have another episode about Vodi Bakum. And these were all men who passed away again in 2025, but were strong believers and very much about their faith. They lived out their faith and were very bold with that. So we're going to talk about Charliekirk in a minute. Some housekeeping. Remember, check out the merch for the podcast on truestrengthapparel.com. truestrengthapparel.com. Again, everything I mentioned in the show will be in the show notes. So all these links will be in the show notes. Anything that is important or highlighted for what I bring up with Charliekirk is in the show notes. Always check the show notes. I try to set you guys up real good, in there. So truestrengthapparel.com for merch for the show, and get the best clear protein on the market right here, Quench Protein. That's so good. ScienceSups.com. Use code TrueStrength at checkout for 15% off when you order there. And again, I failed, but I still don't have, I actually gave out all my new books, Rooted and Rising. So I'm waiting for a new shipment to come in. So pretend I'm holding it up. Rooted and Rising, my new book that came out November 2025. Rooted and Rising. And then you also see my other book, ABC Primer, right there, the kids book. So check those out on Amazon. Rooted and Rising and ABC Primer by Aaron Simpkins on Amazon. So let's jump into this. Charliekirk. Me just saying that name, people just seeing that name on the title of this episode are either going to be already inspired or they're going to already be triggered. That's just the nature of what happens when you bring up Charliekirk. And unfortunately, because the left is so diabolical in how they twist truth and how they just blatantly don't care about truth, is how they came up with creating this reputation, creating this false portrait profile of Charliekirk. And so the reason I say that is because if you're somebody on the left, or if you're somebody who has a lot of left friends or family or whatever, they react to Charliekirk almost like how they react to Trump. And I'm somebody who firmly does believe, like kind of jokingly, but also kind of seriously, that TDS is real, Trump derangement syndrome, in how there's just bringing up the name Trump, no matter what follows, what he has done or hasn't done, just his name at this point causes this visceral reaction within people that they like lose themselves. They become this weird creature that has zero control of their emotions and zero control of any cognitive process that could potentially be happening within their brain, and it's like this. I really do think it's kind of real. I say that because, like I said, unfortunately, Charliekirk kind of brought out that same reaction within people. And what I think, especially in the context of Kirk, not necessarily Trump, but in the context of Kirk, Kirk was um, obviously very outspoken about politics. I mean, that's how his name got out there, is politics. But especially in the past 3 4 years, his faith, which he always had, and he always was straightforward with the fact that he's a Christian. He didn't hide that, but he was the last couple of years he was very, like, his faith was pushed, dare I say, even more than his politics. And I don't know if that's I don't know if that's God's sovereignty, showing that, like, obviously God knew that Charlie's life was going to end when it did. Um, so so that was, Charlie being about the most important thing the last couple of years of his life. I don't know what that was, but or if that was just he had matured and grown in his walk with the Lord. So that was naturally what just came out in everything. But his views on politics and his views on any topic he talked about was influenced mostly by the scriptures, was influenced mostly by the fact that he is a Christian. And so I think what happens a lot of times when people have that reaction to him, that visceral reaction to him, it is it's quite honestly, it's kind of demonic, in origin, because it's they know this is a man of God. They know that this is a man who lives on principle, and lived with his faith, uh, on his chest, and was bold with it. And the devil doesn't like that. The devil doesn't like people who are like that, people who live that way. And so I just, to me, that's just kind of what I think is potentially what leads to why that reaction happens within people when they hear and see the name Charlie Kirk. Uh, but now, going back to reality, this was a man of God who was only 31 years old when he was shot and killed in front of the whole world. By 31, he had established the largest I don't know if it's the largest just conservative student, or youth, I don't know how he worded it, but student or youth based political organization, or just nonprofit. If it was the largest nonprofit in general, or just like largest conservative based nonprofit, but either way, very big. By 31, he had done all this. Started it, I believe, when he was 18, and by 31 was married, 2 kids, largest one of the largest nonprofits in the world, very influential, within American politics, within American culture, and the one of the main. He had one of the most effective and largest voices when it came to what was happening within culture. And I do believe, when you see these statistics about how Gen Z males are that demographic, ever since this type of statistic has been kept track of, Gen Z males of any other male group, in other generations, again, it only goes back 3 or 4 generations, but Gen Z males are the most conservative and most God seeking group of males within a generation. And I do honestly believe that has a lot, if not most, to do with Charlie Kirk, with his voice and everything that he did. I mean, you're talking about billions and billions and billions of views across all platforms. Um, he his thing was to go to a place and set up a microphone for him, set up a microphone for somebody else, for the crowd, and say, "Prove me wrong. I'm going to say this thing. Prove me wrong." Um, or whatever you have, your question, your thoughts, prove me wrong, and let's talk about it. Let's debate. And the left can't handle that, because who on the left does that? Who on the left goes to a college campus and sets up a microphone and says, prove me wrong. They're not going to do that, because they're not principled like that. Their foundation is not with the idea of truth being the core of it. Um, they just want what they want. They just want to feel good. They just want to be, have somebody else do something for them. And it's a totally different paradigm within their thinking, within their mentality about life. But again, Charlie Kirk's mentality about life came from his faith. And uh, I mean, you can look up countless videos. I have an ongoing note on my phone about where when I come across a Charlie Kirk clip, and I know that it's one of the ones that are very commonly used to make him sound bad, or make him seem like he was saying something that he really wasn't. When you know the context and you know the whole quote or the whole situation, I have an ongoing note of those videos where it is the whole thing of the most common phrases used out of context for him, because he has said things. He said controversial things. I'm not going to lie. He said controversial things, but part of the reason what a lot of what he said was controversial was the fact that it only is controversial because we live in the backwards PC culture society that we live in. Um, where saying something like the best possible scenario for a child to be raised in is a mother and a father who are married and are Christian in their home. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry to be so controversial and say something that would is just so far out there. I can't believe somebody would believe that. Um, or uh, or here's a quote I'll read right from him. Every human being, I believe, is made in the image of the divine, is sacred, is unique. And if we get away from this principle as we have, we not only have moral degradation, we not only have the collapsing society around us, but it's bad for that being itself. That being itself is unique. That being has rights. And who are we to say just because we're older that we get to murder it? He's talking about abortion, obviously. And I mean, whoa, can't kill babies in the womb, so controversial. But something like that is controversial because of the backwards society that we live in, the PC society that we live in. Somebody saying they want to protect the baby that's in the womb. We don't want them to be poisoned. We don't want them to be pulled out of their mother's womb, piece by piece, literally. If you don't think that's what happens in an abortion, go look it up. That is what happens in an abortion. Um, and they go in and they rip a leg off, they rip another leg off, they rip an arm off, they pull the torso out, they crush the skull, they pull the whole thing out, then they throw them on a tray and make sure, and then they piece them together like a little person, because that's what they are, to make sure that they got all the body parts of that little body, which is a baby, which is a human being. Make sure they got them out. That's what happens. So we're the crazy ones for saying that something like that is barbaric and something like that is evil. It's the absurdity. Like, that's absurd. And he was somebody who, the reason he was controversial in the eyes of this current culture is because he just simply pointed out the absurdity that we are accepting, the absurdity that within common society, within the within what is the common norm on a college campus that are taught from professors who are supposed to be the smartest people, in there. It's taught, that the fact that you can go from a man to a woman, like woman to a man. No, you can't do that. But when you say the absurd is absurd, well, when the absurd is accepted by society, then all of a sudden you look like the crazy person. But you're not, because that's how truth works. Truth is true, no matter who calls you crazy. No matter, it doesn't matter. So a man can't go to a woman. That's just true. Sorry, it just is. Um, and he was somebody who said all of those things. And again, the devil doesn't like that. The devil doesn't like his tricks being pointed out. The devil doesn't like absurdity being pointed out. The devil doesn't like truth given, truth spoken. And he definitely doesn't like people who are being effective about it and being effective with the truth. Charlie Kirk was one of the most effective communicators with the truth that was on the world when he was on the world. So I don't want to make this too long. So I'm just going to read a couple quotes I pulled from him, and then we'll end this out. I feel like I went on a little rant there, but that's okay. Because one thing I did learn from Charlie Kirk, you can't see it in the camera, but I have a little picture of Charlie Kirk right here. If you go back to episode 145, when I had my whole Charlie Kirk episode, I have that image from that episode hanging up right here. It's a picture of Charlie Kirk. It just says courage across it, because I learned a lot of courage was needed in my life when Charlie Kirk was killed, because of how much courage he lived with, and how much courage it took to do what he did, and knowing that he was in the crosshairs and still went out there and did it. I'm not in those crosshairs, not even a little bit, like he was every single day. And I'm still not doing a fraction of what he did every single day in the public eye like he did every single day. So the lesson I take from Kirk, and from his life, from how he lived, is courage. I need more courage. So I'm going to read a few quotes that I like from him. He said, "I'm far more interested in what God wants from me than what I want from God." He said, "Faith is not passive. It requires boldness, courage, and action." Jesus defeated death so you can live. I actually made a sweatshirt for myself with Kirk, and I put that quote on there. And I'll end with this. Again, I just brought up courage. This next quote that he said this at the end of an interview about a month, I think it was about a month before he was killed. So that's all crazy. That's God, though. But he said, he was asked if it all were to go away, if all were to end, tomorrow, what do you want to be known for? And he said, what do you mean, if I was going to die? And he's like, well, yeah. And he's like, all right, well, if I was going to die, and here's a quote: "I want to be remembered for courage, for my faith. That would be the most important thing. The most important thing is my faith." So let's live like Charlie, live with courage, live for truth, live principled. By any given account, he was a great man behind the scenes. He lived what he said. He was a great husband, a great father. And don't believe the left's lies about him. Don't believe the left's misquotes and out of context wording and quotes and all this stuff to try to make him sound like who he wasn't. And he was the guy inviting them to the microphone. He was the guy inviting them to shows to sit down and talk with them. He was the guy telling the crowd to hush down and don't make fun of that person. Don't make fun of this person just because they look different, or they have a different idea that he already knows that he's going to disagree with. He was the one telling the crowd to hush. He was the one telling the crowd to be respectful. He did that. He lived that. So let's learn from that. And with that, episode 151, remember, truth is strength.